This lecture, we ended with the vector equation that I have here. Remember what this said was, we can take a vector b and rewrite it as a linear combination of a set of vectors. Those are the v1s through the vn's. All right, so our goal now is to extend that idea to matrices. And in the process, we're going to define what we mean when we talk about multiplying a matrix by a vector. Now, the initial setup here is the same. We're going to start with a matrix A, defined in terms of its columns, and a column vector X that has the same number of entries, that's the number of columns in the matrix A. Now, the key observation here is that the matrix can be viewed as a collection of those column vectors. So if we rewrite the matrix in terms of its columns, then the product of the matrix and the vector becomes a linear combination of those columns with the entries of the vector x as the weights. Right? This gives us really a more intuitive way to think about matrix multiplication. Instead of viewing it as just some collection of arithmetic operations, we can think of it as taking the columns of the matrix and combining them to produce a new vector. Right? That interpretation is going to be one of the central ideas that we're going to use throughout the rest of the course. Before we dig deeper into that equation, I want to look at just a practical example, right, to try to make this concrete. Just what I've got here, excuse me, is a matrix times a vector, and key feature, I want you to notice that the number of columns in the matrix, it's 3, is equal to the number of rows in the vector. And it's going to be a very important attribute as we dig further into this multiplication process. So to do the multiplication, our definition says it comes out like this, right? And I really want you to see the connection back to the parts of the left-hand side, right? The columns became the individual vectors, and the entries in the vector, those became the weights, right? So from here, we're just going to apply our vector properties, right? I'm going to multiply the scalar into the vectors, then I'm going to add the vectors, and there's our final result. Right, so that's just a quick example of how this matrix multiplication works. Now, was very column-centric, right? I broke it out into columns and multiplied the columns by scalars and then added things together. There is a second way of approaching this that is more row-centric. All right, so I want you to watch how this works. Notice that I've replaced the vector with variables here because I really want you to see how the variables move around as we do this. Okay, applying our rule, this matrix vector product is this linear combination. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to distribute the x's into the vectors, and then I'm going to add the 3 vectors together. And notice what I've got here now, right? I have come up almost with a formula for multiplying the matrix and the vector, and it relies primarily on the rows. Right, so to get the first entry of the result here, I take the elements of the first row, multiply them by the vector. To get the second row, I take the elements of the second row of the original matrix, 4, 5, and 6, and multiply them by the vector. Okay, so where my first example, we did this in a very column-centric way. This method is approaching in a very row-centric way. We'll talk more about the significance of this later on. It's particularly important when we start talking about software applications, because the way individual programming languages like C versus Python versus MATLAB, the way they store these matrices internally is going to drive us toward using one of these methods over the other. Okay, so we have a couple of properties. These are fairly intuitive, I think. If we have a matrix and 2 vectors, then the first property, hopefully that looks familiar to you, is a distributive property, right? Matrix vector multiplication is distributive. We can distribute the A into the parentheses. And if we're multiplying by a scalar, it doesn't matter which vector gets multiplied by the scalar. We can multiply the original vector u from the vector equation by c, or we can do the AU first. Remember, AU, the result of A times U, that's just another vector, right? Or we can take that result and multiply that by the scalar. I'm not going to get bogged down here with proofs of these things. If you're interested in the proofs and the description down below, you can find these on the corresponding website. See if we can bring this back around to systems of linear equations. So I've got an example here to just illustrate how this is going to work. So we're going to take that system, and I want you to compare it to our matrix vector product definition from the previous slide. If you look at the system of equations, notice how the x's line up with the coefficients. x1 kind of has the columns 2 and 3. X2 has the column 3, -4. And X3 has the column -4, 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those columns and make those the V1, V2, and V3 in our matrix equation definition. Right? And the X1, 2, and 3, those become the scalars. And the 5, -2, that's the B. That's the vector on the right-hand side. Now, if you kind of read the matrix equation definition backwards, if you read it from right to left, we can take this linear transformation and convert it into the product of a matrix and a vector, right? It's going to look like this. So now again, I want you to compare back to the original system of linear equation. You see how why I was trying to get you to think about the x1 column, the x2 column, the x3 column, right? Because it's those coefficients that became the columns of the matrix here, right? So hopefully now you see how we kind of have a method for going from a system of linear equations to a matrix equation. And one thing I do want to highlight before we kind of formalize this on the next slide, remember that A matrix, it's not the augmented matrix of the system. It's just the coefficient matrix, because the constant terms, the 5, -2, those are on the other side of the equal sign. This theorem here, this somewhat wordy theorem, it is really a high point for this chapter. What this is telling us is, if we have a matrix equation, AX equals B, where we know the columns of A, then that matrix equation has the same solution as the corresponding vector equation, right, that linear transformation, which in turn has the same solutions as the system of linear equations, whose augmented matrix is given in terms of those vectors. So a little abstract, right? It's not really pointing us in the direction of how to solve problems. We're going to get to that in just a minute. But it establishes a very important connection between all of the topics that we've been talking about so far. And we're going to turn our attention to the question of existence. Right? The equation AX equals B has a solution if and only if B is a linear combination of the columns of A. And that's great, but there's a bigger question that we need to be able to talk about here. Let's say we have an equation like this. Okay, and my question is, does the system of equations represented by the left-hand side of the equation have a solution for all possible values of that right-hand vector? Right? No matter what values I put in there for B, does the equation have a solution? And to answer that, in general, the answer is going to be no. Sometimes yes, but not necessarily always. So, but to answer that, here's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to fall back on our augmented matrix and our row operations. Right? So this is the augmented matrix that corresponds to that vector equation. And I'm going to do our row operations. I'm going to start by eliminating the 2 3's. I multiply the first equation by 1.5 and subtracted it from the ones below it. You notice what I'm doing on the right hand side there, right? I'm keeping this in terms of the variables. the B1, B2, and B3. Now I'm going to do this again to eliminate the 4 in column 2, and notice what happens. This also eliminates the -4 in column 3. Okay, so what does this tell me? This tells me that, in terms of our previous definitions, this tells me that x3 is a free variable. And the only way this system of equations has a solution is if that expression at the bottom of column 4 is equal to 0, which hopefully it's clear to you it's not always going to be equal to 0. So if we do the arithmetic or the algebra, multiply that out and simplify it, it turns into this. Right, 4.5 B1 minus 4B2 plus B3 has to equal 0 for this system of equations to have a solution. Maybe one, maybe infinitely many. And again, referring back to our previous discussion, remember what this looks like in R3, right? That equation there, 4.5 B1 minus 4B2 plus B3 equals 0, that defines a plane. And specifically, it defines a plane that goes through the origin, right? So only vectors that are in that plane, when substituted into our equation for B, are going to give us solutions. Theorem here that's going to kind of generalize, again, what we talked about on the last slide. So if we start off with an m by n matrix, then the following statements are all equivalent. What that means is if one of them is true, then all 4 of them are true. Okay, now notice that I haven't said anything about the b vector part of the vector equation in the setup here. So if you look at line A, this theorem is actually making a very broad statement. Right? It's saying the equation associated with that matrix has a solution for every vector B, not just one, but for every vector in Rm, if and only if every B in Rm is a linear combination of the columns of A. That's kind of the vector equation interpretation. The columns of A span Rm, or A has a pivot position in every row, right? That in particular is going to be, as a practical matter, quite often the easiest one for us to show. There's a lot going on in this lecture. A lot of new concepts, a lot of new theorems, a lot of new relationships. Before we move on to the next section in this first chapter, I want to just take a little time to in the next lecture to go through some practical problems, right? That work through some examples of how we can use these ideas to answer questions about specific matrices, specific systems of linear equations.